How can one careless, viral moment destroy a marriage in broad daylight? What really happens when you mock your husband behind his back, only to have the legal papers served before you finish your morning coffee? Can a woman who thought she was untouchable survive when the punchline is her own downfall? The coffee was still steaming in my favorite mug when I made the biggest mistake of my life. I thought Graham was still in the bathroom getting ready for work, and my girlfriends were already giggling on our weekly video call when the words just slipped out. Honestly, ladies, he's maybe a 4 on his best day, but the bills are paid and the house is clean. I laughed, adjusting my laptop screen. What more can a girl ask for, right? The silence that followed should have been my first warning. Sarah from accounting was covering her mouth, her eyes wide. Jennifer from the gym looked like she'd seen a ghost. Even my best friend Michelle seemed frozen on screen. "Lysandra," Michelle whispered, pointing behind me. I turned around slowly, and there he was, Graham Crowe, my husband of 8 years, standing in the kitchen doorway with his work bag slung over his shoulder. His face was completely blank, which somehow felt worse than if he'd been screaming. "Graham, I started, but he held up one hand. "I'll pick up Eliza from school today," he said quietly, his voice perfectly steady. "Don't wait up." The front door closed with a soft click that echoed through our apartment like a gunshot. "Girls, I have to go," I said quickly, slamming the laptop shut before anyone could respond. My hands were shaking as I got dressed for work. This was fine. This was totally fine. It was just a joke between friends. Graham was being dramatic, as usual. He'd get over it by dinner time, and we'd laugh about this whole thing. At least, that's what I kept telling myself as I drove to the office. My job as an office administrator at Henderson & Associates wasn't glamorous, but it paid well enough and gave me plenty of time to chat with my coworkers. The morning flew by in a blur of emails and filing, and I almost forgot about the whole breakfast incident until my phone buzzed around lunchtime. It was a text from my college roommate, Beth. "Girl, you need to check Twitter now." My stomach dropped as I opened the app. There it was, trending under Davor and Bills Air Paid, a 15-second audio clip of my voice saying those exact words about Graham. Someone had screen-recorded our video call and posted just that part. The comments were brutal. Imagine finding out your wife thinks you're a 4 on social media. "This man needs to run. The audacity of this woman. Sir, if you see this, you deserve better. Bills are paid, but respect is gone." My phone kept buzzing with notifications. The clip had been shared thousands of times. My face felt hot as I scrolled through comment after comment, each one more harsh than the last. I called Michelle immediately. "Lysandra, thank God," she answered on the first ring. "I've been trying to reach you. Someone recorded our call and—" I know, it's everywhere." I ducked into the supply closet for privacy. "Who would do this? Who was even recording?" "I don't know, but it doesn't matter now. The damage is done. Have you talked to Graham?" "He left for work this morning without saying anything. Michelle, what do I do?" "Apologize. Grovel if you have to. That man has been nothing but good to you, and you just humiliated him in front of the entire internet." I hung up feeling worse than before. Michelle was supposed to be on my side. She was supposed to tell me that Graham was overreacting, that it would all blow over. The rest of my workday was a nightmare. Coworkers kept giving me strange looks, and I caught people whispering near the water cooler. By 5 o'clock, I just wanted to go home and fix things with Graham. But when I walked into our apartment, something felt different. The living room looked exactly the same, but there was an odd emptiness to it. It took me a few minutes to figure out what was missing. Graham's laptop wasn't on the coffee table where he always left it. His reading glasses weren't on the side table. The book he'd been working through, some thick technical manual about network security, was gone from the couch. I walked down the hallway to our bedroom, my heart pounding. The closet was still full of his clothes, and his side of the dresser looked untouched. But when I checked the guest room, my worst fears were confirmed. Someone had made up the bed with fresh sheets. Graham's laptop sat on the small desk by the window, along with his glasses, his book, and a small pile of clothes neatly folded on the chair. He'd moved out of our bedroom. I sank onto the edge of the guest bed, staring at the evidence of my husband's quiet retreat. This wasn't just about a stupid joke anymore. This was about 8 years of marriage, about our 6-year-old daughter Eliza, about the life we'd built together. My phone buzzed again. Another notification from Twitter, another share of that damning audio clip. I turned it off and buried my face in my hands. How had everything gone so wrong so fast? The next few days passed in a tense blur. Graham was polite but distant, speaking to me only when necessary, and sleeping in the guest room. He still picked up Eliza from school, still helped with homework and bedtime stories, but he barely looked at me. I tried apologizing, but he just nodded and said, "I heard you the first time, Lysandra." By Friday, I was going crazy. I needed to get out, to feel normal again, to remember who I was before this whole mess started. So when Silas Finch texted me about meeting for coffee, I said yes, without thinking twice. Silas had worked with me at my previous job about 2 years ago. He was charming in that easy, confident way that had always made me feel special. We'd flirted harmlessly back then, nothing serious, just the kind of attention that made boring workdays more interesting. "You look stressed," he said when I slid into the booth across from him at Cafe Luna downtown. "Rough week?" "You could say that." I stirred my latte absently. "My husband and I are going through a rough patch." "The boring IT guy?" Silas grinned. "What did he do now?" I found myself telling him everything. The video call, the viral clip, Graham's cold shoulder treatment. Silas listened with the kind of focused attention I hadn't gotten at home in months. "Sounds like he can't handle being married to a woman with personality," Silas said, reaching across to touch my hand. "Some men are intimidated by strong, independent women." His fingers were warm against mine, and for the first time all week, I felt like myself again. Not the villain in some internet drama, not the wife walking on eggshells around her wounded husband, just Lysandra, interesting and desirable, and worth someone's full attention. "I should probably head home," I said, but I didn't move to leave. "Should you?" Silas's thumb traced across my knuckles. "When's the last time you did something just for you?" My phone rang before I could answer. Graham's name flashed on the screen. "Hey," I answered, pulling my hand back from Silas. "Where are you? Eliza's asking about dinner." "I'm just running errands. I'll be home soon." "What errands? I thought you said you were working late today." Had I said that? I couldn't remember what excuse I'd given. "Just picking up some things. Give me an hour." I hung up quickly, my heart racing. "Trouble in paradise?" Silas asked with a knowing smile. "He's just controlling, always needs to know where I am, what I'm doing." The words came out easily, and they felt true in the moment. It's exhausting. "You deserve better than that." Silas leaned closer. "You deserve someone who appreciates what he has." I should have left then. I should have gone home to my daughter and my husband and tried to fix what I'd broken. Instead, I stayed for another hour, soaking up Silas's compliments, and the way he looked at me like I was the most fascinating woman in the world. When I finally got home, Graham was in the kitchen cleaning up after dinner. "Sorry I'm late," I said, hanging my purse on the hook by the door. Traffic was terrible. "Where did you go?" he asked without turning around. "Target mostly. Picked up some things for Eliza's school project." The lie rolled off my tongue so smoothly, it scared me. "What school project?" My mind went blank. "The science thing, with the poster board." Graham finally turned to look at me. "Lysandra, Eliza doesn't have any projects due, and you don't have any Target bags." "I forgot them in the car. I'll get them tomorrow." I moved toward the hallway, desperate to escape this conversation. "Where is Eliza?" "Getting ready for bed. She waited for you to read with her, but I told her you'd be up to say goodnight." The guilt hit me like a physical blow. I'd missed dinner with my daughter to flirt with another man, and now I was lying about it to my husband's face. "I'll go see her now," I mumbled. "Lysandra." Graham's voice stopped me at the kitchen doorway. "We need to talk, soon." I nodded without looking back and hurried upstairs to Eliza's room. My 6-year-old daughter was already in her pajamas, sitting up in bed with a picture book in her lap. "Mummy, you missed dinner. Daddy made spaghetti." "I'm sorry, sweetheart. Mummy had to work late." Another lie, this one to my innocent daughter. "Did you save me some? Daddy put a plate in the fridge for you. Are you and Daddy fighting?" The question hit me like ice water. "Why would you ask that? Daddy's sleeping in the guest room now, and you both look sad all the time." I sat on the edge of her bed, smoothing her dark hair back from her forehead. She had Graham's eyes, serious and thoughtful, even at 6 years old. "Sometimes grown-ups need space to think," I said carefully, "but we both love you very much. That will never change." "Okay." She seemed satisfied with that answer. "Will you read to me?" I read her 3 chapters of her favorite book, treasuring the simple normalcy of it. This was what mattered: my family, my daughter's sleepy smile, the quiet ritual of bedtime stories. But even as I tucked Eliza in and kissed her goodnight, I was thinking about Silas's text from earlier. "Had a great time today. We should do it again soon." I'd already replied, definitely, before I could stop myself. Over the weekend, the tension at home was suffocating. Graham was civil but cold, and I found myself snapping at both him and Eliza over nothing. Sunday dinner with his parents was a disaster. His mother Miriam kept making pointed comments about commitment and loyalty, while his father Paul sat in stony silence. My own mother, Dina, called that evening to check on me. "You're being too hard on yourself," she said when I told her about the week. "It was just a harmless joke. Graham needs to get over it and move on." "But Mum, it's been all over social media. People are saying terrible things." "So what? You're a grown woman with your own opinions. You're allowed to vent to your friends. If Graham can't handle that, maybe he's not as secure as he pretends to be." Her words were exactly what I wanted to hear, and I clung to them like a lifeline. Maybe I wasn't the villain here. Maybe Graham was being oversensitive. Maybe I deserved to feel appreciated and desired. When Silas texted me Monday morning, asking if I wanted to meet for lunch, I didn't hesitate. "Can't wait," I replied. The lunch meetings with Silas became a regular thing over the next 2 weeks. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I'd tell Graham I was working through lunch or running errands, then slip away to Café Luna to spend an hour feeling like the most important person in the world. Silas was everything Graham wasn't: spontaneous, flirtatious, full of stories about his exciting job in marketing. He made me laugh, in a way I hadn't in years, and when he looked at me, I felt beautiful and interesting and alive. "You're glowing," he said during our 3rd meeting, reaching across to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear. "Whatever you're doing, it's working." I knew I was playing with fire, but I couldn't seem to stop. The attention was addictive, especially when home felt like walking through a minefield. Graham had become even more withdrawn, speaking to me only when absolutely necessary, and spending most of his free time in the guest room with his laptop. "He's punishing me," I complained to Silas over coffee. "It's been 2 weeks, and he's still acting like I committed some unforgivable sin." "Some men can't handle their ego being bruised," Silas said, his hand covering mine on the table. A confident man would have laughed it off. "Exactly." It felt so good to have someone understand. I mean, it was just a joke between friends. The fact that it went viral wasn't my fault. "You're allowed to have opinions about your own life," Silas agreed. "The fact that he's making you feel guilty about it says more about him than it does about you." His words made perfect sense. I wasn't the one being unreasonable here. I wasn't the one dragging out a fight over something so trivial. My phone buzzed with a text from Graham. "Family dinner tonight at Romano's, 7 p.m. Please don't be late." I'd completely forgotten. Graham's parents had planned a family dinner to clear the air and move forward together. The last thing I wanted was to sit through another evening of Miriam's passive-aggressive comments and Paul's disappointed looks. I have to go, I told Silas reluctantly. Family obligation. Poor thing. He squeezed my hand. Text me later and tell me how it goes. The promise of that connection, of having someone who cared about my day and wanted to hear from me, carried me through the rest of the afternoon. Romano's was crowded and noisy, which somehow made our family table feel even more tense by comparison. Graham's parents were already seated when we arrived with Eliza, and the forced smiles all around told me this was going to be every bit as awful as I'd expected. "Lysandra, dear," Miriam said as I kissed her cheek. "You look tired. Are you sleeping well?" "Fine, thank you." I settled into my chair, already on edge. Graham sat across from me, his attention focused entirely on Eliza as she chatted about her day at school. He hadn't said a word to me during the drive over, and he wasn't looking at me now. "So," Paul said once we'd ordered, "I think we all know why we're here. This family has been through a difficult couple of weeks, but we need to find a way to move forward." "I agree," I said quickly. "I've apologized for the joke. I can't take back what happened, but I'm ready to put it behind us." "Are you?" Miriam's voice was sharp. "Because from what I understand, you've been telling people that Graham is overreacting." My face flushed. "I never said that." "Your mother certainly did. She called to tell me that Graham needs to get over himself and stop being so sensitive." I shot a look at Graham, who was still focused on cutting Eliza's chicken. "My mother was just trying to be supportive." "Supportive of what exactly?" Paul asked. "Publicly humiliating your husband." "It wasn't public. It was a private conversation with friends that someone recorded without permission." "But you said the words," Miriam pressed. "You sat in your kitchen and told your friends that your husband, the man who works 60 hours a week to provide for this family, is a 4 out of 10. "Grandma, what's a 4 out of 10? Eliza piped up, and the entire table went silent. "It's nothing, sweetheart," Graham said quietly. "Finish your dinner." "But Mommy said Daddy was a 4 and the bills are paid. I heard her on the computer." The blood drained from my face. My 6-year-old daughter had heard the joke. She'd been listening, and now she was repeating it at a family dinner like it was just another piece of conversation. "Eliza, that's not—" I started. "She said it to her friends on the computer," Eliza continued innocently. "And then everyone on the internet was talking about it. My friend Madison's mom showed her the video." Miriam's face had gone white. Paul was staring at me like I'd slapped him. Graham finally looked up, and the pain in his eyes was devastating. "Other kids at school have seen it," he asked Eliza gently. "Madison has. She asked me if my daddy was really ugly. I told her no, but she said her mum said you were." I wanted to disappear into the floor. My daughter, my innocent 6-year-old daughter, was being asked by classmates if her father was ugly because of something I'd said as a joke. "This is ridiculous," I said, my voice louder than I'd intended. "People need to mind their own business. It was a private conversation that got blown out of proportion." "You're still defending it," Miriam said incredulously. "Even after hearing that your daughter is being questioned at school, you're still defending it." "I'm not defending anything. I'm just saying that everyone is overreacting to a stupid joke. A joke about your husband, the father of your child, the man who—" "I know who he is," I snapped. "And I know what I said, and I've apologized 100 times. What more do you want from me?" "Some accountability would be nice," Paul said quietly. "Some recognition that your words have consequences." "Fine, I'm accountable. I said something thoughtless, and I'm sorry. Can we please move on now?" Graham stood up abruptly, pulling out his wallet. "Eliza, finish your dinner. I'll be outside." He dropped enough cash on the table to cover the bill and walked away without another word. "Now look what you've done," Miriam said. "What I've done? He's the one walking away from the conversation." "Because you're not having a conversation," Paul said. "You're making excuses and expecting everyone else to pretend this didn't happen." I looked around the table, at Graham's disappointed parents, at my confused daughter, at the empty chair where my husband should have been. Everyone was looking at me like I was the problem, like I was the one being unreasonable. "I think we should go," I said, standing up. "Come on, Eliza." "But I'm not done with my pasta." "We'll get you something at home." The drive back was silent except for Eliza's questions from the back seat. "Why did Daddy leave? Why was Grandma mad? Are we in trouble?" Graham was already in the guest room when we got home, the door closed and the light off. I put Eliza to bed and then sat in our empty living room, staring at my phone. There was a text from Silas. "How was dinner? You've been on my mind all evening." For the first time in hours, I smiled. At least someone cared about how I was feeling. "Terrible," I typed back. "His family is being impossible." "I'm sorry, you don't deserve that. Want to talk about it tomorrow?" "Yes. Same time, same place." "Wouldn't miss it." I went to bed that night feeling like Silas was the only person in my life who truly understood me. Everyone else was too busy judging me to see that I was hurting too. The next morning, I found Graham in the kitchen making coffee, already dressed for work, even though it was barely 6 a.m. "We need to talk about last night," I said, pouring myself a cup from the pot he'd made. "Do we?" He didn't look up from his phone. "Yes, we do. Your parents were completely out of line, and you just walked away and left me to deal with it." "Left you to deal with what, exactly? Taking responsibility for your own words?" "I have taken responsibility. How many times do I need to apologize for one stupid comment?" Graham finally looked at me, and I was startled by how tired he looked. There were dark circles under his eyes, and he seemed to have aged years in the past few weeks. "It's not about the apology, Lysandra. It's about the fact that you still don't think you did anything wrong." "Because I didn't." "Not really. It was a private conversation that got recorded without my permission. I'm the victim here too." He stared at me for a long moment, then shook his head. "I have to get to work." "Graham, wait." But he was already grabbing his keys and heading for the door. "I'll pick up Eliza again today. Don't wait up." After he left, I tried to focus on getting ready for work, but something felt off. The apartment was too quiet, too empty. I found myself wandering through the rooms, looking for signs of... what? I wasn't sure. It was when I passed Graham's home office that I noticed the door was closed. He never closed that door. In 8 years of marriage, I'd never seen it anything but wide open. I tried the handle. Locked. Graham had locked his office door. The man who'd never hidden anything from me in his life had suddenly started locking doors. My mind immediately went to the worst possibilities. Was he talking to a lawyer? Was he planning to leave me? Was there someone else? I spent the entire drive to work obsessing over that locked door. By the time I met Silas for lunch, I was wound up and paranoid. "He's definitely hiding something," Silas agreed when I told him about the locked office. "The question is what?" "Maybe he's talking to a divorce lawyer," I said, the words making my stomach clench. "Would that be such a bad thing?" Silas asked gently. "I mean, you've been miserable for weeks. Maybe it's time to consider that this marriage isn't working." The suggestion should have horrified me, but instead, I felt a strange sense of relief. Maybe Silas was right. Maybe Graham and I had just grown apart, and this whole mess was just the excuse we needed to admit it. "I don't know," I said. "We have Eliza to think about." "Kids are resilient, and they're better off with 2 happy parents living separately than 2 miserable parents living together." His hand found mine across the table, and I didn't pull away. "You deserve to be happy, Lysandra. You deserve someone who appreciates you." The way he was looking at me made my heart race. This was dangerous territory, but I couldn't seem to care. For the first time in weeks, someone was making me feel desirable and important. "I should probably go," I said, but I made no move to leave. "Should you?" His thumb traced across my knuckles, just like that first day. "When's the last time you did something that made you happy?" I couldn't remember. Everything lately had been about managing Graham's hurt feelings and dealing with internet trolls and trying to explain myself to his judgmental family. I don't know, I admitted. That's not fair to you. You're a beautiful, intelligent woman. You shouldn't have to apologize for existing. When he leaned across the table and kissed me, I didn't stop him. It was just a quick kiss, barely more than a brush of lips, but it felt like crossing a line I could never uncross. When we broke apart, my heart was pounding and my face was flushed. "I'm sorry," Silas said, but he didn't look sorry. "I've been wanting to do that for weeks. I have to go." This time I did stand up, grabbing my purse with shaking hands. "Lysandra, wait. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable." "I'm not uncomfortable, I'm married." "Are you though? Really? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're just going through the motions with someone who doesn't value what he has." I left without answering, but his words followed me back to the office and through the rest of my workday. Was I really married, or was I just playing house with someone who'd already checked out? That evening, I came home to find Graham's laptop open on the kitchen counter. He was upstairs giving Eliza a bath, and for a moment I was tempted to look. Maybe I could figure out what he was hiding, what he was planning. But before I could move closer, I heard his footsteps on the stairs. I quickly moved to the refrigerator, pretending to look for dinner ingredients. "How was work?" he asked, closing the laptop and sliding it under his arm. "Fine. Busy." I couldn't meet his eyes, afraid he'd somehow be able to see what had happened at lunch. "How was Eliza's day?" "Good. She has a spelling test tomorrow. I already helped her study." "Oh, I could have done that." "You weren't here." The simple statement hung between us like an accusation. I hadn't been here. I'd been kissing another man in a downtown cafe while my husband took care of our daughter's homework. "I had errands to run," I said weakly. "Right, errands." He headed toward the guest room, then stopped. "Lysandra, I need you to know that I've been trying. I've been trying to get past this, to forgive and move on, but I can't shake the feeling that you're not being honest with me." "What do you mean?" "I mean the errands that leave no shopping bags, the late meetings that aren't on your work calendar, the phone calls you take in the other room." My blood went cold. "Are you spying on me?" "I'm paying attention, there's a difference." "This is exactly what I'm talking about," I said, my voice rising. "You're being paranoid and controlling, and I'm tired of walking on eggshells in my own home." "Controlling? I asked you where you went today. That's not controlling, that's being a husband." "A husband who locks his office door and moves into the guest room and treats me like a criminal." "I moved into the guest room because I needed space to think, and I locked my office because I'm working on something important." "What kind of something?" He studied my face for a long moment. "The kind of something that requires privacy." "From your wife?" "From everyone." With that, he disappeared into the guest room, leaving me standing alone in the kitchen with more questions than answers. That night, I lay in our empty bed staring at the ceiling and thinking about Silas's kiss. It had been wrong, but it had also been the first time in weeks that someone had made me feel wanted. Graham was pulling away from me, building walls and keeping secrets, while Silas was offering warmth and understanding. My phone buzzed with a text. "I can't stop thinking about today. I hope I didn't ruin everything." I stared at Silas's message for a long time before responding. "You didn't ruin anything." "Good. I was worried I'd scared you off. Can I see you tomorrow?" I should have said no. I should have deleted his number and focused on fixing my marriage. Instead, I typed, "Same time, same place." Because whatever Graham was hiding in that locked room, whatever he was planning, I wasn't going to sit around waiting for my life to fall apart. If he could have secrets, so could I. The affair, because that's what it was now, even though we hadn't slept together, continued for another 2 weeks. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I'd slip away to meet Silas, and every time, we got a little closer to crossing the final line. He made me feel alive in a way I'd forgotten was possible. When I was with him, I wasn't the woman who'd humiliated her husband on social media, or the mother being judged by other parents at school pickup. I was just Lysandra. Funny, attractive, desirable Lysandra. "You're glowing," my coworker Jennifer commented on a Friday afternoon. "New skincare routine?" "Something like that," I said with a secret smile. At home, Graham had become a ghost. He worked late most nights, spent weekends in his locked office, and communicated with me only through Eliza. When she asked why Mommy and Daddy didn't eat dinner together anymore, he told her that grown-ups sometimes needed space to work on important things. "What important things?" I'd asked him later. "You'll find out soon enough," was all he'd said. His cryptic responses were driving me crazy, but they also made it easier to justify my meetings with Silas. If Graham was planning something behind my back, why shouldn't I have my own secrets? Everything came to a head on a Thursday in late March. I was supposed to meet Silas at our usual cafe, but when I arrived, he wasn't there. Instead, there was a text waiting for me. "Something came up at work, rain check." Disappointed and with an hour to kill, I decided to do some actual errands so I wouldn't be completely lying when I got home. I was walking out of CVS when I saw a familiar face across the parking lot, Graham, sitting in his car outside a law office. My blood turned to ice as I watched him get out of his car and walk through the front door of Brennan and Associates, Family Law. A divorce lawyer. My husband was meeting with a divorce lawyer. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, waiting for him to come out, my mind racing. How long had he been planning this? What was he going to ask for? Would he try to take Eliza away from me? When Graham finally emerged, he was carrying a manila folder and looked grimly satisfied. He drove away without seeing me, but the damage was done. My marriage was officially over. I called Silas immediately. "I need to see you," I said when he answered. "Now. I thought we cancelled today." "Plans changed. Can you meet me at your place?" There was a pause. "Lysandra, I don't think that's a good idea." "Why not? I thought you wanted to spend time together." "I do, but look, I care about you, but I'm not looking to get in the middle of a messy divorce." "How did you know about, it's obvious that's where this is heading. And when it happens, you're going to need to focus on your daughter and your future, not on some rebound relationship." I felt like he'd slapped me. "Is that what this is? A rebound? Isn't it? I mean, be honest. If your marriage was solid, would you be here with me?" The truth of his words hit me like a physical blow. He was right. I'd been using him as an escape from my problems, not building something real. And now that I actually needed him, he was backing away. "I have to go," I said, hanging up before he could respond. I drove home in a daze, my mind reeling. Graham was planning to divorce me, and Silas didn't want anything serious. I was about to lose everything, and I had no one to blame but myself. That evening, I tried to act normal for Eliza's sake, but Graham could clearly tell something was wrong. "You seem upset," he said as we cleaned up after dinner. "Do I?" I kept my voice light. "Just tired, I guess." "Are you sure that's all?" I looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time in weeks. He'd lost weight, and there was a sadness in his eyes that made my chest ache. This man had loved me for 8 years, had given me a beautiful daughter and a comfortable life, and I'd repaid him by humiliating him publicly and cheating on him emotionally. "Graham," I started, not sure what I wanted to say. "Yes?" I love you. I know I haven't been good at showing it lately, but I do love you." He was quiet for so long I thought he wasn't going to respond. When he finally spoke, his voice was gentle but firm. "I know you think you do, but love isn't just a feeling, Lysandra. It's a choice you make every day. It's how you treat someone when you're angry, how you talk about them when they're not around, how you prioritize them in your life." "I can do better," I said desperately. "I can be better." "Maybe you can, but I don't think you want to. Not really. I think you want the security of being married without the responsibility of being a wife." His words cut deep because they felt true. Had I been taking him for granted? Had I been treating our marriage like a safety net while I looked for something more exciting? "That's not fair," I said weakly. "Isn't it? When's the last time you asked about my day? When's the last time you did something thoughtful just because you wanted to make me happy? When's the last time you chose me over something else you wanted more?" I couldn't answer because I couldn't remember. "I've been trying to figure out how we got here," Graham continued, "and I think the truth is that we've been roommates for a long time. We just didn't want to admit it." "So, what are you saying?" "I'm saying that maybe it's time to stop pretending." That night, I lay awake thinking about everything he'd said. In the morning, I woke up determined to prove him wrong. I was going to be the wife he deserved, the partner he needed. I was going to save our marriage. But when I went downstairs, Graham was already gone. There was a note on the kitchen counter. "Taking Eliza to school. Back this evening. We need to talk." I spent the day in a panic, calling in sick to work and pacing around our apartment. I cleaned everything twice, made Graham's favorite dinner, and even bought flowers for the table. When he came home with Eliza, I was going to show him that I was ready to fight for our family. But at 3 p.m., there was a knock at the door. A man in a suit stood on my doorstep with an official-looking envelope. "Lysandra Crowe?" "Yes." "You've been served." I stared at the divorce papers in my hands, my carefully planned evening crumbling around me. Graham wasn't coming home to talk. He was coming home to end our marriage. And for the first time since this whole mess began, I realized that I might have pushed him too far to ever find our way back. The divorce papers were comprehensive and devastating. Graham wasn't just asking for a dissolution of marriage. He was asking for primary custody of Eliza, citing my increasingly erratic behavior and questionable decision-making. Attached to the petition were bank statements showing every lunch I'd charged at Café Luna, phone records highlighting my deleted text threads, and a detailed timeline of my lies about working late. He'd been building a case against me for weeks. I called his phone immediately, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried his office, but his assistant said he was in meetings all day. By the time he came home with Eliza that evening, I was frantic. "We need to talk," I said, the moment they walked through the door. "Now." "After Eliza goes to bed," he said calmly. "We're not doing this in front of her." The next 3 hours were torture. I helped with homework and dinner and bath time, all while the divorce papers sat on the kitchen counter like a ticking bomb. Eliza sensed the tension and was clingy, asking repeatedly if everything was okay. "Everything's fine, sweetheart," I kept saying, but the words felt like ash in my mouth. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Eliza was asleep, and Graham and I were alone in the living room. "Primary custody," I said without preamble. "You're trying to take my daughter away from me?" "I'm trying to provide stability for our daughter," he corrected. "There's a difference. I'm her mother, and I'm her father, the parent who's been picking her up from school every day while you run mysterious errands, the parent who's been helping with homework while you work late on projects that don't exist." I felt the blood drain from my face. "You've been checking up on me." "I've been paying attention. Your work calendar is synced to our shared Google account, Lysandra. It has been for 3 years. So when you tell me you're working late and your calendar shows no meetings, I notice. That doesn't mean... And when you say you're running errands but come home with no purchases and no receipts, I notice that too. When you start deleting text messages and taking phone calls in the other room, I notice." He pulled out his phone and showed me a screenshot. It was my location history from Google Maps, showing every trip to Café Luna over the past month. 14 visits to the same cafe during work hours, he said quietly. Always on days when you told me you were doing something else. I stared at the screen, my lies laid bare in digital breadcrumbs. "You've been spying on me. I've been documenting a pattern of deceptive behavior. There's a difference." "Graham, please, let me explain." "Explain what?" that you've been lying to me for weeks, that you've been meeting someone at that cafe while I take care of our daughter, that everything you told me about working late and running errands was a lie. I opened my mouth to deny it, but what was the point? He had evidence. He had proof of every lie I'd told, every excuse I'd made. It's not what you think, I said weakly. Then tell me what it is. I looked at my husband, really looked at him, and saw 8 years of love and trust crumbling in real time. He wasn't angry, he was heartbroken, and somehow, that was worse. I met someone, I admitted, but nothing happened, we just talked. For weeks, while lying to me about where you were. Yes. And this person, do they know you're married? I nodded miserably. So you've been having an emotional affair while I've been trying to save our marriage. It wasn't an affair. You lied to your husband to spend time with another person who makes you feel things I apparently don't. What would you call that? I didn't have an answer. Graham sat back on the couch, looking older than his 36 years. Do you know what the worst part is? It's not even the lying, though that hurts. It's not even the cheating, though that hurts too. It's that after everything, after humiliating me online, after lying to my face for weeks, after having an affair, you still think you're the victim here. I don't think I'm the victim. Don't you? You blamed social media for the viral video. You blame me for being too sensitive. You blame my family for being unsupportive. You blamed everyone except the person who actually said the words and made the choices. He was right. I had been blaming everyone else, telling myself that I was misunderstood, that everyone was overreacting, that I deserved sympathy instead of consequences. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm so sorry, Graham, for all of it. I know you are. But sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't rebuild trust. Sorry doesn't erase the fact that our 6-year-old daughter has been asked by classmates if her daddy is ugly because of something her mother said for entertainment. The reminder of Eliza's innocent repetition of my cruel words hit me like a physical blow. I never meant for her to hear that. But she did, and now she's dealing with the consequences of your choices, just like I am. What can I do? How can I fix this? Graham was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was gentle but final. You can't. Some things can't be fixed, Lysandra. Some lines, once crossed, can't be uncrossed. So that's it. 8 years of marriage, and you're just giving up. I'm not giving up. I gave up weeks ago when you made it clear that you'd rather blame everyone else than take responsibility for your actions. This is just making it official. I wanted to argue, to fight, to demand another chance. But looking at him, at the exhaustion in his eyes, the resignation in his posture, I realized that I'd already lost him. Maybe I'd lost him the moment I called him a 4 on that video call. Maybe I'd lost him when I chose to lie instead of apologize, when I chose Silas's validation over my husband's feelings. What happens now? I asked. Now we figure out how to co-parent Eliza in a way that's healthy for her. We sell the apartment and divide our assets. We move on with our lives. And Eliza, we'll spend weekdays with me and weekends with you, assuming you can provide a stable environment. The custody arrangement can be revisited in a year if circumstances change. It was fair, I realized. More than fair, considering what I'd put him through. Okay. I won't fight the divorce or the custody arrangement. You're right, Eliza needs stability, and you've always been the more stable parent. Graham looked surprised. I expected you to fight this. A month ago, I would have. But I'm tired, Graham. I'm tired of fighting and making excuses and pretending that I haven't made a mess of everything. For the first time in weeks, he looked at me with something like compassion. What will you do? I don't know. Figure out how to be a better person, I guess. Figure out how to be the kind of mother Eliza deserves. She loves you, you know. Whatever else happens, she loves you. Tears started flowing then, and once they started, I couldn't stop them. Graham handed me a box of tissues, but didn't try to comfort me. That time was over. I really did love you, I said through my tears. I know I didn't show it, but I did. I know, and I loved you too. But love isn't enough when there's no respect, no trust, no partnership. We forgot how to be married somewhere along the way. He was right. We had forgotten. Or maybe I had forgotten, and he'd just gotten tired of carrying the relationship alone. 3 months later, I was sitting in a studio apartment across town, looking at my phone. The divorce had been finalized the week before, quick and clean thanks to my decision not to contest it. Eliza was with Graham for the week, and I wouldn't see her until Saturday. The apartment was small but clean, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. There were no lies to keep track of, no excuses to make, no one to blame but myself for the choices that had led me here. My phone buzzed with a text from Silas. "Hey stranger, heard you're single now. Want to grab dinner sometime?" I stared at the message for a long time, remembering the thrill I'd felt when he paid attention to me, the way his validation had felt like a lifeline when my marriage was falling apart. Then I deleted it without responding. I had a lot of work to do on myself before I was ready for any kind of relationship. I needed to figure out who I was when I wasn't defining myself in relation to someone else, when I wasn't looking for external validation to fill the holes in my self-esteem. The bills were all mine now: rent, utilities, groceries, everything. My paycheck covered the basics with nothing left over for luxuries. I was, quite literally, broke in every sense of the word. But for the first time in months, I was also honest. With myself, with Eliza, with everyone in my life. It was a start. My phone rang. Graham's name flashed on the screen. "Hi," I answered. "Hi, Eliza wants to talk to you before bed. Is now okay?" "Of course." There was a rustling sound, and then my daughter's voice. "Mommy." "Hi, sweetheart. How was school today?" "Good. We learned about butterflies. Did you know they taste with their feet?" "I didn't know that. That's amazing." "Daddy's making pancakes for breakfast tomorrow. I wish you could have some too." My heart clenched. "Me too, baby. But I'll see you Saturday, and we can make our own pancakes." "Okay. I love you, Mummy." "I love you too, Eliza, more than all the stars in the sky." After she hung up, I sat in my quiet apartment and thought about the choices that had brought me here. The joke that started it all, the lies that followed, the affair that ended everything. I thought about Graham, probably reading Eliza a bedtime story in the home we used to share. I thought about the man I'd called a fool, who'd turned out to be worth more than I'd ever appreciated. I thought about the bills that were now mine alone, and the silence that filled my evenings, and the long road ahead toward becoming someone my daughter could be proud of. It was going to be a difficult journey, but for the first time in months, it was going to be an honest one.